Montreal is known for their poutine, beaver tails, and maple syrup, but is also known for its hauntings, scary stories, and ghost sightings. In fact, Montreal is considered to be an extremely haunted city, the most haunted city in all of Canada.
The beautiful and sprawling City of Saints is hiding some horrific paranormal infestations and terrifying supernatural occurrences in its vacant old structures, twisted alleyways, and truly remarkable cemeteries.
Montréal, tu es belle, tu es sécuritaire, tu es lumineuse. Tout de même, tu possèdes quelques lieux où on ne souhaite à personne de se retrouver seul un vendredi 13 d'automne par une nuit de pleine lune.
This is Chasing Folklore, a channel about the investigation of all creepy things. Today we're going to be going to the Grey Nuns house.
Built in 1871, Concordia's Grey Nuns building at the corner of Guy Street and Rene Levesque Boulevard has grown in reputation. Originally a mother house, this terrifying-looking structure once housed more than 1,000 nuns, while also serving as a hospital, orphanage, and care center.
On Valentine's Day of 1918, tragedy struck this institution.
There was a fire that occurred. The orphanage caught on fire.
There were 53 confirmed deaths, but many speculate some of the smaller bodies, such as those of younger children and babies, were cremated entirely.
Ever since then, they've been saying that the building is haunted. Apparently, people hear kids crying or people screaming.
In 2007, Concordia University purchased the Mother House and converted it into a residence hall for undergraduate students. The school renovated most of the building, all except for the basement, or more accurately, the crypt, where the remains of 276 people, 232 of which were nuns, are held to this very day.
Concordia's Grey Nun residence, where students have to find a way to sleep at night knowing there's a crypt buried just meters beneath their beds.
And legend goes that the ghosts of the past haunt the students and visitors of the building.
Je savais jamais qu'il y avait tellement d'histoires à cette location au centre-ville de Montréal.
This is one of the oldest buildings in Montreal. It dates back to 1693. Originally Montreal's first general hospital, for much of its existence, it's been a home for the Montreal Grey Nuns.
For those of you who don't know who the Grey Nuns are, they are a religious organization. They were established in the 1700s, and they've helped women, orphans, and they've helped the wounded from wars.
Margaret Juville in the 1720s and 1730s was doing works of charity when this place here was becoming quite unkept. The suggestion was to offer it to Margaret Juville to administer, and she agreed on the condition that she could open it up to take care of other poor men and women and children also, and orphans.
Margaret Juville, a powerful advocate for the poor, began the congregation known today as the Sisters of Charity, or the Grey Nuns.
Today, it is the general house for the Congregation of Grey Nuns, with some rooms furnished as they were in 1847.
Our mission was very much alive in this house for 100 years, and because it became too small, we moved.
Built in 1871, with such a long, colorful, and sometimes tragic history, it should come as no surprise that a number of local legends and paranormal tales have sprouted up amongst faculty, students, and various paranormal investigation teams over the years.
Back in 1864, and probably actually even more, the Catholic Church started a chore test they'd done so right before. Now I'll tell you what they did way back when Grandma was a kid. With all the fun stuff they forbid, they found a spot off of the grid. It was a green and luscious place, a perfect place to say a grace. Beside the mountain at the base, construction started quite a pace. They had a river, well, a stream, so perfect for the godly theme. They drew their plans to start the scheme, building up their next regime.
C'est quand même une grosse maison ici, là.
Dans la maison ici, on avait quelques ailes qui hébergeaient des femmes âgées, puis un autre étage, là, les messieurs âgés.
Dans le temps où j'ai vécu, là, dans les années 49-51, on avait déjà beaucoup de sœurs âgées qui étaient allées, par exemple, en mission dans le Grand Nord ou dans l'Ouest canadien.
Là, il y avait, les sœurs commençaient à vieillir, il y avait plus de malades. Moi, j'ai eu beaucoup d'agréments avec les anciennes, les aînés dans l'infirmerie, la fin de leur vie. J'ai fait ça pendant 30 ans. J'ai assisté 487 sœurs. Et j'ai vu partir.
Ça craque tout partout, là, hein? C'est des vieux planchers.
Il y avait la grande salle. Au bout, il y avait la bibliothèque. Oui. C'est ça, on allait là. Ça, c'était le 3e étage. J'avais beaucoup le hockey, les Canadiens. À telle heure, il fallait se coucher. Mais on allait se coucher, puis on était 4-5 à peu près. On se donnait le mot. Quand Saupoudlier va être dans sa chambre, on va aller doucement, mais les unes après les autres. On s'en allait dans la bibliothèque. Puis là, on ouvrait le radio. Puis là, on écoutait notre partie de hockey. Puis après ça, on s'en retournait se coucher. Elle nous a jamais rien dit.
Bon, elle le savait.
Puis elle le savait. Je suis sûre qu'elle le savait. Mais on a fait ça.
Discrètement.
Hey guys, we finally made it to the Grey Nuns house.
At this point, the Grey Nuns have left, and the mother house is actually belongs to university now.
In 2007, Concordia University bought the Grey Nuns Convent for $18 million, and the building subsequently undertook a $50 million renovation. When it bought the building, Concordia announced it would turn the mother house into its Faculty of Fine Arts when the Grey Nuns moved out in 2022. But when the nuns vacated the building 9 years ahead of schedule, the university had to take a pragmatic decision to use the building as a residence. A year after the last Grey Nun moved out of the historic mother house, the newly refurbished convent reopened as a 600-bed student residence complete with study areas available to the entire Concordia community. The $15 million overhaul was a tour de force in adapting the historic content to the needs of a modern, non-denominational university while protecting the integrity of the 145-year-old structure.
I think I made it. Now I just have to find the right entrance.
I lived in the Grey Nuns residence at Concordia, which is like a 2-minute walk to the business school, and it's right downtown in the center of Montreal. It's a beautiful building. We had full catering, so you basically didn't need to do groceries. Everything was cooked for you. It was real like student style living.
It's actually really nice. As far as today's meal goes, it's pretty good.
What I love about living in the Grey Nuns house is that it has so much history, and that I very much feel like I'm a part of Montreal's history by living here. The fact that we have like 600 students from all around the world that are now in one place.
What I love about Grey Nuns is that the building is it just has so much history in it. There are hundreds of people before me living here and hundreds of people after. You're kind of hyper aware of that there's going to be people before and after you. Montreal has already had these years of transformation and things like that, and to have a building that has lasted in that time and then to be able to live in it is just incredible. It also is really nice because you have these areas of quiet within the building that I think are really organic to it and really special.
There is like a lot of common rooms where you just kind of hang out everywhere across the building.
The pièce de résistance is the exquisite chapel, now transformed into a silent study hall inspired by the venerable libraries at the University of Oxford. Long tables, lit by white-shaded desk lamps, now replace the pews, richly decorated by religious paintings and sculptures. The chapel, designed by Quebec's leading church architect Victor Bourgeot, was built between 1874 and 1878. At the foot of the white marble altar, a semicircle of sleek, cardinal red armchairs form an arresting focal point.
The awe-inspiring study spaces.
Les sentiments que j'ai en rentrant dans le chapel, c'est je me rends très silencieuse. Aussi, ça m'aide beaucoup à faire mes devoirs parce que je trouve que je dois être productive. C'est très spécial d'avoir cette place-là dans ma maison et de pouvoir dire que c'est parti de mon appartement. The things I tell my friends when I visit the building can vary. I feel very much like a tour guide. I talk about what the different buildings were before or different rooms were set up. I definitely show them the crypt and what that entails, and I talk about people doing pilgrimages to come here to pray to Margaretville.
Among the historic gems in the convent is the basement crypt that is still home to many of the earlier sisters who passed on. The crypt is the only section of the convent that is still in the sisters' possession.
When the building was going to be converted into a school, they thought, hey, let's move this crypt. But it was deemed too hazardous.
As many of the sisters died from infectious diseases, opening the crypts could once again unleash their various ailments to the public.
I love ghost stories, so I share with them the few ghost stories that we have.
As history and local legend fill in, on Valentine's Day of 1918, a fire broke out on the top floor of the building. Tragically, at this time, that floor acted as an orphanage.
The orphanage was on the top floors of the left wing, whereas the sick and the soldiers were on the lower levels.
There were 53 confirmed deaths, but many speculate some of the smaller bodies, such as those of younger children and babies, were cremated entirely, forgotten to the blaze. Students often report hearing the trampling and crying of children above their heads coming from empty floors, disembodied prayers being chanted from vacant rooms, and report that the old structure just plain creeps them out.
I find it's kind of creepy.
Right?
Really? I feel like it looks like a ghost hospital.
I don't know any of the stories.
There was a fire.
Okay.
And all the children were still on the top floors and they couldn't escape.
What?
And
which floor?
I've never heard any of this.
On the top floors.
Okay.
Apparently, at night you'll hear them running around.
Many students have claimed that they can hear the kids running around, crying, and they can hear them at night. There was reports that there was one specific student who kept having nightmares.
On one chilling occasion, a student staying in the Grey Nuns building reported they were unable to sleep at night. When asked why, she told her friends and faculty she'd been having terrible nightmares of burnt, disfigured children. She tried a number of remedies for a good night's sleep, but the dreams kept coming. Eventually, the student had no other choice but to move out, after which she reported the nightmares stopped immediately.
My RA was telling me how he had a dream. He was trying to get inside the building because it was on fire and he could see people trying to get out. But every time he tried to get back in, like the doors would lock. And he brought it up to me and my friend, and the friend I was with was like, oh, wasn't there actually like a fire? Yeah. And like the doors all locked and everyone got locked inside.
Have you heard any of these strange things going on?
No, not yet. Now every night before I go to bed, I'm gonna be like.
Also, Concordia offers an on-campus daycare.
Several daycare workers have reported watching in shock as multiple groups of children apparently play with other children who just aren't there. When questioned, many of these kids have described the very same spirits with matching clothing and descriptions, and on several occasions, burnt children in blackened clothes.
Here? Yes. There's ghosts of murdered kids roaming around the dormitory, and we have Concordia students sleeping there.
You should make a movie about it.
The Grey Nuns house isn't the only part of the building that is believed to be haunted. There's actually a red cross outside of the house on the corner street.
Another haunted landmark at Concordia is that of a large wooden cross on the corner of Guy Street and Rene Levesque Boulevard. According to local legend, it marks the spot where, long ago, a murderer was buried. In 1752, a man by the name of Jean-Baptiste Goyer inhabited a small house just north of the street today, where the gates to the Grey Nun Motherhouse are now. After being accused of murder, he was tortured and eventually confessed. His punishment was to be death by breaking wheel. This was a gruesome ceremony which pretty much involved a guy taking a giant carriage wheel and breaking every bone in one's body, then using the newfound joints to tie one into a mangled mess on the very same wheel, all before hanging and displaying the victim's body to the public, sometimes still alive. Many who walk by this cross report phantom limb pains, feeling dizzy, sick, and even having to leave the area.
How does it feel to know that there are students sleeping in the dormitory right there?
I want to go there at night, and I want to see what's happening.
Je savais jamais qu'il y avait tellement d'histoires à cette location au centre-ville de Montréal.
And while this building's really old, we're thankful that the nuns had sold. It cost us a ton of gold, but it's a place out of the cold.
It's this nest and this protective sense of covering and housing all of these students that are new to the city.
While there really isn't a lot that I can complain about in my dorm,
these days not much is going on at the Youville Motherhouse, but Sister Aurore Larkin wants all that to change.
It's going to become alive.
Along with the University of Montreal and the Pointe-à-Calière Museum, the Grey Nuns want to transform the building. For one, it would be a museum. You could see Marguerite Youville's room, complete with artifacts dating back to the days of New France. It's basically unchanged since then.
Standing on the floor that our founders squat.
The vaulted cellar was used for storage hundreds of years ago. It would be home to never-before-seen artifacts from Montreal's history.
I think it's, in terms of heritage, it's very special. It's a very rare place for Montreal.
You know, it's going to be a tourist attraction, but in the good sense.
Wouldn't only be a tourist attraction. The University of Montreal wants to bring archaeology students here.
They would learn our history, the Grey Nuns history, and also with this new way of doing archaeology. You know, it's a profession in itself, and we can learn a lot from that science.
My friend and myself, we were walking, and we stopped at René Lévesque and Key, and we were just flabbergasted by how this building is present and how it's really well preserved.
It's a sense of pride in knowing that we've maintained this, you know, that the Grey Nuns maintained this for 300 years.